Perfect. What's up, man?
Oh, what's going on, man?
Hey, good to get you in here finally. You're supposed to be the first one out of everybody.
Oh, yeah. And then I got hit by COVID, and it took me out.
I heard that, dude. I heard one of those videos like, God damn, he's not messing around. Yeah.
I wasn't. Dude. I was in the ICU. I had pneumonia first, then COVID right on top of it, and they were going to intubate me and everything. It
Oh,
was,
damn.
yeah. I was like, you got to be kidding me. I haven't been sick for like 20 fucking years. So when I heard all the stories about what COVID does to people, I always thought, well, I'd be one of those that's asymptomatic. You know,
And then
turns
boom, you
out,
get double whammied.
yeah,
God damn.
yeah,
Yeah, not
totally.
never good to get pneumonia and then get hit with what COVID's doing to our bodies.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
well,
I have tinnitus now. I couldn't believe it.
jeez. Well, when it
Yeah,
rains, it pours. I guess that's what you
yeah,
get for 20 years of clean health, man.
yeah.
Shit. So I'm actually really excited for this one, guys. The usual, I don't think this one will be necessary, but the usual, remain respectful. Let's not go throw hate. Let's not go mass report, nothing like that. But I'm excited for this one. He's done some response videos to me in the past, and every time he did one, even if I disagreed, it was logical, it was pleasant, it was respectful. So I was like, all right, I can fuck with this guy. So I think tonight the goal kind of was kind of maybe let you kind of more talk about your experience as it relates to the military-industrial complex. But I do know there's been some comments on some of the videos. Maybe we can talk about like Antifa 1A2. I was thinking maybe.
Yeah, absolutely. I have a list of topics depending on which direction
Perfect.
we go.
Dude, you do your thing.
Um,
Honestly, if you want to kind of take the lead here, I was kind of hoping, yeah, because here's the thing. I was accept. You have an intelligence background, right?
yeah, I do. So I did 20 years in the Marine Corps, 10 years enlisted, 10 years officer, and when I became an officer, went intel. I actually had, and some people don't like to hear what I have to say, but I did a not a unique career track. No career track unique, but it was definitely uncommon for a Marine officer. That took me to all levels of the government. So I had a really good insight onto like what we really do versus what people think we do, and what we really do versus what the media reports. That really opened my eyes to the media and all the bullshit that they feed everybody. Like almost a decade ago, is when my eyes were truly open. So yeah.
So when was that time period that you're in?
Oh, from 2000, or sorry, from I say 2000, but I joined in late '99, and I got out at the end of 2019.
Okay, recently. Okay, cool, cool. Let
Yeah.
me do my thing here real quick. I'll be right back.
Uh huh.
Okay, very cool. So, I know. Then let's. How about this? Let's dive into. I think
We
something
can
we
do
could
the
talk about.
military. We
Was
can
that?
do the military industrial complex if you have like questions or anything.
I was gonna kind of say. Does anyone have questions they'd like to run by him, or we can do this? How about this? Hit him with some questions you'd like us to answer, and I'm gonna let you do your thing. You have a kind of playbook. Let's go with your playbook, and then we can pause for questions maybe at various points.
Well, okay. So my playbook, really, I was watching your last live, and so these questions aren't even debatable. They're literally just I have some curious questions to
Yeah.
you, or at least one of them. What had brought you to Alaska? I actually grew up there, so I was when you said you were in
Dude,
Alaska, I was like, oh, I got to ask him about that.
it's the shittiest thing, man. A fucking cruise liner. So it's like the most contradictory thing ever, right? So every chance I could get off that thing and go to land, I did. And it was beautiful, man. I like, there's the first time I was on vacation where I didn't want to come back home. I was like, I could see myself staying here. It's beautiful. The people are different, man. The culture's different. Um, I think they're more civilized than we are in some ways, man.
Yeah, growing up in Alaska, watching the U.S., it was like it wasn't like it wasn't like okay, are you there?
Hold on, I lost you there for a second, but I think I hear
Yeah,
you now. Go ahead.
somebody's trying to call me.
Cool.
Yeah, it was growing up in Alaska. It was like the U.S. was like almost a foreign nation. We were so. I mean, granted, we knew we were a part of it, but we were so separate from it that it was like what the world does now. I mean, America's pretty much turned into the world's reality show, and it really was that way for me growing up as well. And so, a lot of people always talked about independence, this, and where what should Alaska do, versus what should we do with the U.S. So, yeah, you're absolutely right. It's a very unique culture up there.
I loved it, man. They were nice to me. I liked it up there. I was what was it? Skagway, Ketchikan, Juneau. I'm gonna miss the last one. I forget, but yeah, my favorite was just going for like hikes, just in the deep, man. It's just a different animal back there, dude. I think like I said, it's the closest I've ever felt to God. Where I was like, yo, like
Yeah.
I feel like there's something spiritual here. Just like being with like seeing the eagles and shit, dude. I mean, just seeing seeing orcas. I mean, it's just a different experience. If you have a chance to go to Alaska, I highly recommend. Highly recommend. Um,
Absolutely.
and I think
Real quick,
go
I'm
ahead.
just gonna say hi to a friend of mine, Reet. She's on. She's just saying hi, so I want to say hi
Yeah,
back.
do your thing, definitely, man. Also, guys, this is the
Okay,
People's
so really,
Bartender.
yeah,
Go follow him. Go follow him. Go follow him. So go ahead.
yeah. So what drew me to you was your passion, right? It wasn't necessarily. I personally disagree with you on so many topics, but you're passionate about it was genuine. I could see that, and so that's why I started to stitch or reach out because at the end of the day, I feel like I'm trying to do the same thing in a way. I obviously don't advertise it the way you do, but I definitely am drawn to the middle. I'm a constitutionalist first, but that doesn't mean necessarily that I'm a like a straight hardcore conservative. But I mean, I guess I am. I don't really, but like I have so much empathy and understanding for other people's point of view that I mean, conservatives is fine for me, and it's okay if it's not good for you. At the end of the day, I feel like though that we should all be adherent to the Constitution because it's the founding document for our country, and if we're all going to be Americans, we should all probably understand what that is and adhere to it as best possible. So that's really where my framework is at.
I think that's a pretty fucking sound framework because I've always kind of believed I don't really care what the system is. If you get enough people buying in, abiding by the system, you're probably gonna be okay, assuming that system's not totally off the charts, right? And so at the end, that's not like I think the Constitution is pretty damn brilliant. Like there's some things I think that we need to address as a country in there that were probably originally written in or whatever that maybe have been addressed to some degree. But it's a pretty damn good framework that gives us room to play with it, which is really important, right? Because life is changing and life's changing faster than ever right now, man. Ideas are moving faster than ever. Technology is moving faster than ever. So to that end, yeah, I agree. If you're gonna, that's something. Dude, I mean, you probably know the numbers, or at least have an idea on our kind of civics literacy is what I'll call it. But the amount of people who couldn't name even one of the rights in the First Amendment, you're talking near half the population, which is horrifying to me. Like when I saw that number a few years back, I was like, "Whoa, we have a major problem," right? And then you start looking at other areas, other arenas, and how can you utilize your rights and how can you protect your rights if you don't even know your rights?
Exactly.
So that's kind of I'll say this, man. So part of that passion is seeing my dad from a different country and seeing how much he actually values the freedoms here, right? And seeing how much his family values the freedoms here, and seeing how many certain immigrants value the freedoms here because they know how bad it can be. And here's the thing: there's a lot of immigrants from certain areas who've seen the worst of communism, right? They've seen the worst
Right.
of totalitarianism on the left, and there's a lot of people who've seen the worst of totalitarianism on the right, right? So the reality is authoritarianism can come from any camp,
Yep.
literally any fucking camp. It doesn't matter. We all have a little bit of that. We all have a little bit of that in us too. And there's a time and place for that actually, right? Because it's kind of a group. To me, I look at it as like group decision making. Because that's what government is kind of supposed to be. I think would be fair.
Right, but through representative elections, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, like that's
Yeah.
the only reason why it's legal or why it's just is because your representative that you elected is making these group decisions for the masses. Um, and otherwise, it doesn't work. That's why our experiment works so far until we get to the oligarchy that you spoke of earlier, which we have, and that's really sad. From my personal opinion, anyways, I felt like Trump was what kind of threw stones in the oligarchy. He wasn't a part of it. He had to go to. He talks about how he had to go to what's his name that controlled Fox News and literally say, "Hey," it was almost like, "Can I have your permission to run for president?" Or at the very least, it was, "Hey, I'm letting you know before I announce." Like a mother, it was almost like a mother may I, and he was going to do it regardless. But he knew he had to make that step, right? And that's ridiculous. You shouldn't have to go to the CEO of a media company
You
to
talking
almost get
like
his
Rupert? He had to go talk to Rupert and just
yeah,
give.
yeah, almost like get his blessing. It's like fuck yourself, dude. I mean, like anybody should be able to run for president, but you have to have the money and the influence and the fine and all that jazz. And so Trump went ahead and did that, and then he blew open the whole door, the whole smoke screen that the media is some sort of fourth estate that guards against the sins of the of government. No, he straight up opened the door to the eyes to the world that they're there for themselves and for the political party. And so for that's so thank you, Trump, in that respect. I
That's
mean,
something that no one wants to fucking admit. All right, here's what I'll say on that. Donald Trump's not fucking wrong when he talks fake news to some degree. My issue is he's a disinformation machine himself.
yeah,
So it's like coming from him, it doesn't mean shit, right? But he's not wrong, and that's kind of why I think the whole Trump Twitter ban conversation, a lot of things get lost there. Because what's most important, I think, for people to remember is big tech does not give a fuck about left or right. They give a fuck about maintaining power. They give a fuck about their bottom line. They give a fuck about maintaining control of the information climate because that's what gives them power. All right,
right.
it's not so much about pushing an agenda because in the end, both these parties pretty much promote a climate that allows them to do whatever the fuck they want,
Yeah.
for the most part.
Yeah, and so information is the most dominant power now in the 21st century, and the military recognized this too early on, which is why a lot of their new units have been renamed to information. Um, oh crap! I already just brain dead. But they changed their names of their units to to match that mode of thinking, which is information management, information operations, information dominance, like that. And that's where we're gearing a lot of our um, military capabilities to, at least on the intel side.
Mm-hmm.
And because we recognize that the best way to control a populace is to control the narrative. So
On that note, that's kind of what's really interested me. So I study communication, and I have a few different areas of emphasis, but one of the biggest ones that I'm interested in was mass media. And there's different mass media theories. You don't want to like over extrapolate them, but one I really like is gatekeeper theory because it kind of touches on that. Once upon a time, man, 50s, 60s, you really did have a few corporate entities, news stations that just controlled the narrative, right or wrong, and most of us shared those facts. Then we would kind of have conversations with that foundation in place, whether it was accurate or not. We all had the same foundation for the most part. And the internet broke that open, man. The 90s broke that open, and social media just completely fucking broke that open to the point where there's no longer a few gatekeepers. We're all gatekeepers. I'm a gatekeeper. You're a gatekeeper. We all have to have media literacy now. We all have to take responsibility for this information climate, for what comes in and out, because we all create it, we all consume it, we all share it. And we don't get that yet.
yeah, no, we
um,
don't.
and, and we might get it too late, honestly.
That's true. Yeah. So okay. Anyways, so I liked your tagline, "Mute the Media." I thought I wish I had thought of it first, because honestly, that's why I started my TikTok on two topics:
Hmm.
China, trying to take over the world because they are, and influence operations because I'm an expert at it and I see it everywhere. So,
Hmm.
but "Mute the Media" is a great tagline. Um,
I was pretty proud of that one. I can't lie to you.
yeah, I really hope it goes somewhere, and I'd like to help you with that if that's possible.
Definitely, man.
Um,
CCP is an interesting one for me too, man, because I think there's some things that like don't get me wrong, I think there's some things that we kind of some of our rhetoric is a little ugly towards China as a whole and the people, but the CCP itself, that's a real conversation we fucking have to have. Because while I'm
yeah,
pretty big on like withdrawing, while I want to have that conversation, there's still a reality of what other people are going to do as we withdraw and what they would do if we're not the presence that we are. And I'm not sure you can get rid of superpowers, man. So if that's not a possibility, I'd like us to be the best, most moral superpower possible while still understanding there's other realities out there.
yeah,
So CCP is something I don't even want to do that one now. We should do that one where we actually dive into that. I'd be really interested to hear your views on that. Maybe like specifically with like Taiwan and just kind of what you see happening there. If you know a little bit about that, maybe. Maybe you can.
absolutely. I know a
Cool.
lot about it. I can expound upon it now. We can do it
Shit,
later.
let's do it, man. Shit, we're here now. Fuck it. If you're cool with
Well, I
that.
mean, we can always deep dive into it later, but like if I don't go too far. But people, so I'm not going to try. Well, it's important to understand the history of that world, right? Of that part of the world. So China is considered what is called a hydraulic nation. They live and die by the flow of the water through their country. They're because they have massive rainstorms, massive floods that wipe out whole villages. And I'm talking like 5,000 years ago. This has gotten ingrained into their culture, where if not everybody puts their weight into supporting the village, through maintaining the dams and feeding the crops and everything else, um, the whole village will fail. That was the mindset that was developed over thousands of years. And I mean, single people in those villages, they would get ostracized. They would be blacklisted, sent away if they felt like they were too good to do a helping hand kind of thing. So that evolved over thousands of years, and so now you have, and so fast forward, you have the CCP, you have this one party rule, our way or the highway kind of mentality that is not only ingrained in their government but in their private sector as well, and so that's why they now have social credit scores. They get monitored on everything they do. Everything has to be for China, for the party, or else. So individualism is removed really from their mindset. Anybody that tries to do anything that's for themselves, he gets immediately looked at like, hey, that's bad, that's negative, that's wrong. Whereas America, we're exactly opposite. I mean, our founding document was about everybody, man, women are all equal and all individuals, and you have a right to do with your life as you please, which
So
is
let me pause you right
completely
there, actually.
antithetical to the beliefs of the CCP.
100%. So let me pause you right there, actually, because we just hit something I think is interesting. Um, do you think our individualism has gone too far? Like, do you think we've lost kind of what the what individualism is supposed to be? Because I think when I think of individualism, I think of the idea that I'm gonna make myself better so I can raise those around me up with me, right?
Mhm.
The best, because the best me is also what's probably best for those around me, right?
Right.
Um, but I don't know that we're so much an individual nation as we kind of fall into what I call it like this hyper meism almost, right? Because there might be something to be said for a more collective mindset at times. I think it's just about understanding how to do that. So I think with your military background, for example, I think you understand how to buy into a collective goal. You know what I'm saying? I think our issue is as Americans, we no longer know how to balance individual goals with collective goals. Because just because
Right.
you're an individualistic society does not mean there's no collective goal, right?
Correct.
I think we might have lost that to some degree.
Oh yeah, well, not to just some degree, to a great degree, right? I mean, like
Yeah.
there's things we should do and ought to do, and there's things we shouldn't do. And Antifa is a prime example of that. If you want to be anti-fascist, that doesn't mean you get to go beat somebody up. That doesn't mean you get to go put them in a hospital. That doesn't mean you get to go tear down their property. Your voice should be your Antifa. Your voice should be what is resonating across the minds of everybody else. And to physically assault somebody is you shouldn't do it. I mean, we should be better than that. That's the first kind of thought that came to mind when you brought that up. But when you bring
Let
in
me address that actually because I got people in here I know are not gonna like that comment, but we do have to address Antifa here in this country. Now, I'm gonna make the argument that there's some level of legitimacy to Antifa when we got a president trying to steal elections, and trying to do that. But to his point, we do have to be realistic about what our first, because he just said we have to, first of all, we have to always understand where people come from, and whether we agree with them or not, he's already made clear he's a constitutionalist, which means any group who has rhetoric that goes against our First Amendment in any capacity is going to be a threat to his worldview, like, right? And I actually agree that if we're going to be doing this, if we're going to have a constitution, you got to play by those rules. And so while I don't condemn Antifa outright, given the trajectory of the country the last year or so, I do agree we have to have a serious conversation about black bloc tactics and where that comes from, what that stems from, and what that matches. And we have to have a realistic conversation about what we think free speech is and what it's actually trying to accomplish. Um, because there's a reason why our jurisprudence has been laid out to the way it has, and there's been different court decisions over time to the point where we do have hate speech as protected speech. Not that you can't face repercussions, right? Not that you say something really ugly, I don't have to give you a platform or hire you, but the government can't infringe upon that for a reason, right? It's why I can say "fuck you, America" and not get tossed in jail. Because if I were to do it in most other countries, we ain't talking anymore, guys. And that's why that shit exists, because hate speech can be misconstrued then as any kind of rhetoric against the state. All right, so it actually is there to protect you and being able to voice shit against the state. Um, that being
there's a lot
said,
of things wrong. And there's a lot of things wrong with the state, right? I mean, like you guys hit upon in your previous talk, the justice system in general. I have a intimate experience with that. So when she was giving all those facts, I was like, yes, she's absolutely right. Our justice system is completely garbage. Our military-industrial complex is way overblown. These are problems that we need to be able to address and fix. You should be able to talk about it. And in any other country, if I was like in China, they'd throw me straight in jail. If
mhm,
I, if I said any of the
yeah,
things you and I said, any of the things we just said, and we were Chinese citizens, they would throw us right in
yeah. If I was in
jail.
Iran, dude, my dad can't go back to his home because he dared to fucking believe in secularism and democracy, right? And well, that gets you thrown in jail. How dare you,
Yep,
right?
yep,
You're an enemy of the state.
yep.
So,
But I wanted
that's
to get, I, and I, the so our conversation touches upon a lot of things, and which is good and bad because there's some things I want to readdress, like when you talked about
Mhm.
my time in the military, right? One of the great, I said it in a TikTok, but one of the greatest things about joining the Marine Corps was that we were all founded and brought up under the same. We were all broken down, first of all, right? Boot camp's a hard thing to do. But coming out of it, are we a little brainwashed? Yes, that does wash away over time. But we are all founded under like principles that we believe in beyond the Constitution, America, the way to treat each other through respect. And then on top of that, man, I'll tell you, I really was and am colorblind. Like I paid zero attention to the Marines I led with regards to their color, their race, their sex. I've literally led pretty much every category you can think of. I have had lesbians, I've had gay men, I've had black, Chinese, Japanese. I've had foreigners from other countries that joined prior to being American citizens. Could give a shit, right? Because we all believed in the same thing. We all believed in the Marine Corps and supporting America and our mission. I just wish we could take that kind of. I'm not talking like fit America through a boot camp or anything, but
Yeah.
if we could all be brought up in some sort of unifying, without being ultra nationalists or anything like that, God, that would just really improve. I feel like our
I
society overall.
like the idea of like two kind of years of service. And it doesn't have to be like a military thing, but like we all have a skill set. Like literally everybody can contribute in some way. We all have something that we give. We all have something to like offer as a human being. Like I truly believe that. Like I don't care. Maybe you're the sweetest soul on earth. Maybe give 2 years like helping out in like some kind of like elderly like nursing facility or something like that, right? Just kind of spending time with our elderly, something like that, right? Just all of us. I'm pretty good writers, so maybe in some capacity I could help write or something, and like everyone has a skill set. And fuck, I do like to throw hands. Maybe that's what I need to go do, right? So like, it doesn't matter. Everyone has something they can do. To your point, to kind of build a sense of community, right? Because we got to get back to we all share this shit regardless, right? There's a lot of people I cannot fucking stand in this country. But when it comes down to it, we're all on this ship. Winning, losing, rising, sinking, it doesn't really matter. So it would behoove us to figure this shit out. And we really can't do that without having conversations when it gets down to it. And that's why I think the First Amendment exists as it does, because it does allow us to have these conversations and allows these conversations to hit the range it needs to, right?
Yeah,
So,
yeah. Two more things to that. Uh, One is our education system, right? I've hit upon this recently on some TikToks, but um, it would be nice to change it. They still hasn't changed in 20 years. The same history lessons that I went through are the same ones my daughter is going through now, and that's ridiculous. Why? Because we spend so many years on like the development of the entire world from like 10,000 years ago to Europe 500 years ago, and then we spend like one semester on American history
mhm.
and one semester on civics. And it's absolutely stupid when it should be completely flip flop. We should be spending, like in our high school years, 4 straight years on just American history. And on top of that, right alongside of it, 4 years of civics. There's so
Yes.
much in 240 whatever or 230 whatever years of American existence that can encompass these 4 years. And I mean, like I never learned anything about Tulsa. I didn't even know Tulsa happened until I saw it on HBO. I'm
Mhm.
40 fucking years old, man. This is ridiculous. Um, Colonel Chamberlain in the Civil War. I had no idea his speech changed the mind of an entire company of mutineers to go fight on Little Round Top and literally change the course of Gettysburg. Didn't even know about that until I went to a Harvard class last year. Um, Sarah Breedlove, first American millionaire, Black American millionaire with her own business right after the Civil War. Didn't know that, until I saw it on Dinesh D'Souza's one of his documentaries. Black slave owners. No idea there were black slave owners until about 5 years ago. Oops, but you know what I'm saying? Like I didn't know any of that shit.
To your point, this is where like, cause everyone gets hit with it, right? None of us escape what I would call the indoctrination, because it's kind of to me it's kind of silly to think that we live in what might be the greatest nation. Define great how you'd like, but we live in a pretty complex time period, and we span the globe to some degree, right? We're a pretty powerful nation, so I think it'd be kind of silly to assume that like, oh, like, you know, we're just here. We're not indoctrinated, right? They're not telling us or spinning anything, right? We're the good guys, you know. And to that end, it helps when my dad grows up in a country that had their democracy undermined by the CIA, and the resistance to that was labeled terrorists by this country, right? So I see from an early age, oh wow, we're full of shit. But then at the same time, this same country did all that, but gave my dad an opportunity to come here, right, and make an amazing life for himself. Not that he didn't already have an amazing life, but it does that, right? He came from literally nothing after all that, and he made something here, right? My mom, same thing, came from a background that was not good and made something of herself, right? So that's the crazy thing about this country, man, is it's so fucking polarizing, right? But to your point, yeah, we don't teach history, and that's by design, man. Because even all that shit we go through back in time, we don't even teach the key points, right? Like the Reformation, right? We don't teach about the split of the Roman Empire and how that impacts kind of the world, and you know what I'm saying? Like we don't teach the important shit even. So that could help kind of give some frame of mind to why there's differences in like low context, high context, you know, individual and collectivism, all these things. So
Yep. Yeah. Sorry, that was my
yeah, I didn't.
little education needs to
No, you're
change
good, man. I
rant.
didn't know about Tulsa till about 3 years ago, and I was like, holy hell. And my dad's from Iran, by the way. For who asked?
What's that?
Oh, someone in the comments asked where Pops is from. So he's from Iran.
Yeah.
All right. Do you want to hit the next point on that list?
Well, we keep dancing around it. We don't really talk about the military-industrial complex. That's like the first topic.
That is, but I was thinking at this point, because we've been going for about 20 minutes, I think. Well, fuck it. Let's do it. Do you want? Is there some? Dude,
No, did you have something else?
I don't have it. Nah, man. I'm like in dude, these two I didn't prepare for because some of these like I was like, all right, let me make sure I'm in the right frame of mind. Let me kind of prepare for this because I didn't know what I was gonna get. But I was like, I was expecting this to be a chill combo. I was actually excited to talk to you, so I like didn't come here with any goal. I just was like, well, we'll see where it goes. And plus, honestly, I was like, he's military. He's gonna probably have a list, or he's gonna probably be more organized. So I was right. So I'm pretty scatterbrained in that sense. It's pretty bad. So I had like all these like debates lined up, and they were like all over my fucking DMs and shit. It's like some of my moderators who help out, they're like, dude, where's your fucking schedule? I'm like, it's in here. So I got to get better about some of that shit. But yeah, how about that? Let's jump into. By the way, the People's Bartender. Are you a bartender? Or like, is
Only at
that
home. Only at home.
okay?
Uh,
Because I was like, I still work in the service industry, so I was like, hey, so we could swap some shit stories maybe. So
yeah, no, I don't have any. Only at home. I'm a mixologist at home. I just didn't enjoy doing it. So
fair enough, man. It could be fun, but I don't fully suggest it. But how about that? Let's dive into the mic, because I do think it'd be valuable to do that, given your experience and some of the things that you've seen, and maybe some of the myths you can dispel, and where maybe some of the things you can confirm for us. So, you
sure.
cool? Just kind of dive it in. I'll give the floor to you.
Yeah.
I'll just kind of
Okay.
jump in as I need be.
Well, what a lot of people don't understand is why our military is so large, um, and that is derived out of proposed requirements. Um, for instance, Obama tried to change this, and he actually made the right move, in my opinion. The original requirement for our military was to be able to fight two world wars on each coast, right? One on each coast. And that's why we maintained that throughout the Cold War, the USSR, and whatnot. But Obama kind of looked at it and said, well, why do we need to maintain two world wars, especially on the Atlantic, when we have a very developed European ally, like all of Europe, basically? There's a lot between tiny little Russia. No offense to anybody that likes Russia, tiny little Russia and America's coast, and thus the only other threat that loomed was a growing China. So Obama was like, well, I want to reduce it to one world war and um, regional conflicts that we may need attention on. And while he did that a lot, he got a ton of pushback and a lot of hate from Republicans. Me, on the other hand, I was like, yeah, it makes sense.
At the
Um,
time, I was against it because I was deep in conservative land still. I was like, oh, he's weakening our military.
yeah,
um,
no. But yeah, no, we are, we have 800 bases overseas. And some of them, when we say 800, some of them are really, really tiny, like
wouldn't it
really
be really more
small,
like when we say bases? I think more isn't like more like 150 when we think like bases, right?
pretty
Versus like
much,
kind
yeah.
of yeah.
Yeah, for instance, on Korea, on South Korea, we have like two major bases, but there's a ton of little tinier bases, and they all count as the same. And it's like, that's not entirely true. But regardless, we don't, I'm going to get a lot of hate from my military brethren, but We waste so much money on just bullshit. From uniforms, good job, Army. Whatever general was that made that decision for their MARPAT over the last 10 years, that was like a $2 billion decision that was just fucking garbage. That guy should be in jail. But that
Two
was two. That,
billion?
yeah, it was like 2 billion. I mean, my numbers are going to be a little off, but it was in the billions, whether
No,
it was
but
one
yeah, I mean
point
when you're
two or
talking,
two
yeah.
billion. Um, it's that. Yep. Um, that was the F-35 program is a huge waste of money, and now they're talking about the next sixth generation fighter. I'm like, no, stop! Like, why do we
Don't we?
waste
Doesn't
this?
Israel buy a lot of that specific one off of us, or am I getting that? Because I know I get all those kind of mixed up.
We actually sell it to a lot of countries, and they're one of them. Yeah,
They are one of the, okay. Yeah, we sell we're kind of we're the neighborhood gangster, man. We fucking we facilitate drug flows, bro. We facilitate weapons deals, man. We make sure people get trained. Um, God damn.
yeah, and so for me, if I was if I had the power, I would curtail a lot of like what we do, because we waste a lot of money. We waste tens of millions of dollars on exercises for our infantry battalions in both the Marine Corps and the Army every year, and they push through hundreds of thousands of rounds of ammo. The training is very basic. We never get past um, the basic standards that they're required to commit. And I know nobody really knows what I'm talking about, but it's just, to me, having experienced it and having seen it and seen all the burnout of equipment and men that have to go to the hospital for all sorts of issues, knee, back, whatever, because we just force them like an assembly line through these exercises instead of focusing on quality training that could be taught in the classroom or through um, um, the computer AI type training. We are just so intensive heavy. We fly our planes everywhere, moving troops and equipment for these exercises. And I'm like, why are we doing so many exercises? This is so fucking stupid and waste so much money. And we do it overseas. We do it with all these countries, and we don't get a whole lot out of it. So we're spending a ton of money, and the argument is, oh, we get access and placement, we get engagement with our foreign partners, we build camaraderie, and I'm like, okay, but at what cost? Like, what is the fucking point of spending all this money? And so that I would definitely curtail a lot of that. And I know a lot of my military brethren hate me for saying it, but it's true. It's just fucking true. We waste so much cash.
At this point in time, man, the empire's overextended and it's harming the nation. Like,
Yeah.
regardless of the morality of the empire, just at minimum, like just at absolute minimum, just from like a logistical standpoint, we're overextended and it's harming the nation, right? Regardless of what you think about all the geopolitical shit going on, like it's harming us here. We got like for example, like how many of our homeless are veterans, right? How many of our homeless are minors? How many of our homeless are the mentally ill? Um,
That money
so
could be spent elsewhere, yes. In that, hold on real quick. I was
yeah.
also enlisted for 10 years. I became the rank of staff sergeant. Thank you very much, Topher Frank. He was saying that, well, I'm making this analysis through an officer's eyes, and while that might be true, I also spent 10 years enlisted, so I know both sides very well.
Ain't that inconvenient?
Yeah.
Uh, that's actually I don't know. That was one of the videos I would have walked back a little bit. I stand by the overall message, but I think I called pretty much every soldier of ours a war criminal essentially. And I was
Jesus.
like, yeah, it was pretty bad. I was pretty. And then one of my buddies who's on here, he has served. Obviously, hit me up. He goes, "Hey, buddy, I know what you were saying, but you're gonna get some shit for that one." And I was like, I listened to it back. I was like, yeah, I would change that. 'Cause like in the moment I say some shit sometimes, man, but I was like it's out there and it's at that point it got like 100K already. I was like fuck, I can't. It's too far gone. So I was like I'll just address it in the next video and
Yeah.
own my shit because like to someone's point brought up a good point. It's like there's some people who've never fired a gun, they work support roles, yada 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 yada. I mean, and then you got to think about like people's what they know going into it and like what they think they're doing. And there's just yeah, there's a lot of nuance to what I said that was just completely fucking missed by me. So I was like that's a bad one. So if you'd seen that one, I wanted to actually address that one since you were here. Because I was like, by the way, I would probably reword that just so you know. Um,
I actually have not seen that one, but good on you for
yeah, it got
admitting.
taken down eventually. Got
Ah,
muted by the app.
yeah.
Not a shocker. So, but yeah, how about that? We're talking about how we could definitely look to slash some of our spending in certain areas. Do you want to kind of keep maybe expanding on some of your just thoughts on the MIC then, or was there? Because for example, what is it? I think this year would have been 700 something billion. Is
Yeah, and there's no magic pill. There's no like, hey, if you just cut this, you don't have to spend half of that. Uh, but but for me, I would definitely, there's areas I would definitely cut, and I mean, expounding upon those other ones, we don't need as many. I mean, my Navy brethren are going to hate me too. We don't need as many naval ships. We don't need as many aircraft. We just don't, because we're not in a time of war. This idea, and that's what we fed our congressmen for 20 years, is we got to be ready for World War III tonight. So we should always be at that level, that peak performance, that peak everything all the time. And it's like, why? Uh, why? That doesn't, it never made any sense. And so we spend billions of dollars every year for something that's honestly never going to happen. We're not going to
mhm.
see a third world war for probably another 15, 20 years. Um, you
It's
know,
all cyber right now, cyber information based. Like I know, for example, like with my dad and the Iranian resistance, there's still like traditional shit going down, right? Just by the nature of it being within the state, right? Within Iran and stuff like that. But a lot of it now is disinformation, misinformation campaigns, combating the propaganda, cyber attacks, right? Trying to get through infrastructure in that sense. It's just complete, the game has completely changed in like 20 years, man. Like,
Yeah, and well, and then we in the military we punted that too. We instead of creating a separate cyber agency like we should have, we created a cyber command and funneled a ton of military through it. And the training, I don't want to say it's subpar or anything like that, but what they end up doing is they end up trying to apply old military standards to these cyber geeks, and these cyber geeks
it's
end up
a
getting out
It's a
and
classic. It's a classic fuck up. Actually, it's kind of leadership 101. Like you can't just because something works in this context, you can't not fucking copy and paste it over there. It just
but
doesn't
they
fucking work
did.
like that.
They did. They would use terms like cyber 9 mil and it just, oh my god! And it was because it was done by people that don't understand what cyber is. When we should have created an agency that their sole purpose was cyber defense, cyber offense, and cyber espionage. But instead, we integrated it into the military to because DoD had to have primacy over it, which is absolutely it's just complete garbage. And so, in my opinion, we fucked that up too. But you're right.
Um,
We're in a cyber war, and
yeah,
nobody wants to talk about it.
and we're losing it. I feel like based upon what I see. I'm not an expert. We're not. We're doing okay. Doing
We're
okay.
doing great, and so we're doing amazing despite all the shit I just said, um, because we could be doing better. Um, but just because we get cyber attack does not necessarily mean we need to deliver a cyber response. Once you fire that cyber bullet, as they say, once you exploit um, that 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 gap in their cyber armor, if you will, they will be able to cover
They'll
it
be able to
up and
address it.
stop it,
Yeah.
and then not only that, but then they can turn around and take the weapon you created to destroy their or disable their network and modify it, and then use it against us. So they can go ahead and continue their little cyber attacks, cyber espionage, because we probably have things in our arsenal that they wish they had. And if push really came to shove in, say, a third world war, they'll find out very quickly that they are not prepared for us. I'll just leave it at that.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's something I've been trying to look into a little more. It's just that aspect of shit, but that's most of it's like that's not my fucking domain, man. None of this shit's my domain, really. I do find like the foreign policy interesting, right? Different negotiations between government and shit, and I find the military interesting just because of how much money is spent there. And so, for example, someone's asking me a question I want to touch on is healthcare, man. Like for example, like I think we can all agree that our healthcare system has issues. Be cool, kind of, if I just kind of vaguely ask you what are your thoughts on healthcare and where would you kind of go if you had like the magic wand?
Well, I mean, first because it was probably brought up due to the military aspect. I mean, part of that budget is our medical budget. That we and part of it actually goes back to what I was saying with regards to all our training. It turns into dollars, like medical dollars, for years, and not if not decades. Um, and so the idea that we could have some sort of, I mean, look at how much money we spend on just a few million Americans for their health care through the DoD. It's a lot of fucking money. I don't think that that's applicable. I don't really think universal health care is applicable, based simply off of that example. Um, My personal opinion about healthcare is that it needs to be more privatized. It needs to be every single time that you introduce or you reduce government intervention in an industry, the prices go down. This is just a fact. And so what I'd like to see is a place where government is an option, but it's like the least desired option. Maybe you have, back in the day, it used to be private groups that you belonged to, right? That used to pay for your medical insurance, like that. That's why all those secret groups used to exist. Really, was they pool their money and their resources, and they pay for each other's medical insurance also. Why can't we do that on a large privatized scale across state lines? I don't know. Um, I'm not a medical expert. I'm not an expert in this realm, but I do know fundamentals, right?
Hmm.
Less government, prices go lower. If you advertise prices, prices tend to go lower. People tend to shop. If you allow people to shop around, it drives up competitiveness to provide a better service. Like it's just those are just natural fundamentals of our society. So why not apply it to the medical field? I don't understand.
For sure. I think for me, I'm definitely like I'm for universal healthcare. But the reality also, I think some people don't want to discuss is when we look at our healthcare outcomes juxtaposed to other models that do outperform us in some ways, not all that's just because of our private, like because we have private healthcare. Some of that is the reality of we have a really fucking obese and overweight population, for example. 65% of our population is obese or overweight. There is not a country that is anywhere near that level that I know of. If you don't think that impacts your healthcare costs, your healthcare outcomes, we have a society that doesn't really value our doctors and their expertise. If you look at the rate of people who don't finish their medical course, like whatever, if you're taking medication or something, who don't finish it out, things like that, who don't actually follow up on what they're supposed to do and follow up on their physical therapy, these are things that actually matter. All right. So now also we have to address that there's tens of thousands of people every year who die because of lack of or inadequate health insurance, right? That's too many in a country like this. And I also have to talk about, I think, the fact that I think about 31 to 33% of our costs are like administrative go between like insurance and hospitals. So that's a fucking massive number that we have to address.
Right.
Yeah, it's insane, dude.
So one of the things that you just said reminded me of an experience I had. So like I lived outside of the U.S. for 4 years in Japan, and lived off of the Japanese economy and their food and everything else. And my wife and I we were as fit as ever could be while we were there. The moment we get back to America, we don't change anything. We are still working out 24/7. We're still eating healthy, and we gained like 10 or 15 plus pounds. And it's like, what in the hell? Nothing changed other than the food, not the quality or the quality of the food, right? The quality of our food is atrocious compared to other countries.
Hmm.
Japan had a lot more natural, less preservatives. Quickly it rotated off the shelf a lot faster because they didn't put all those chemicals in it. And then we get here back to America, and we're like, holy crap, we just can't. This is insane. And so yeah, our food production is just terrible. Our food choices are garbage. And you're right. This does add on into the healthcare prices and the death rate and everything else.
A lot of this goes back to media, man, and just advertisement, and like just like what a hold that has on our decision making when it comes to what does and doesn't get airtime and shit, right? Because imagine if we utilized our information pathways for education as opposed to entertainment, advertisement, what we do today for the most part. We could have a fundamentally different society, right? So much of this is what you're like, for example, people don't want to talk about this, but it's not like you watch a violent image, you go do a violent thing. But if you watch repeated violent things over the years, now it's a decade, without the proper supervision or guardian to kind of frame that for you, that is absolutely going to have an impact on your aggression. And that aggression is eventually going to run into a situation that might become violence. That's what people don't understand. These things do have an impact on your aggression. For example, we have to have a serious conversation about how we utilize media in this country on so many levels. Like,
Well, the media is just they've turned us in, like I said, into the world's reality show. When I was in Indonesia back in 2012, and I was talking with a bunch of expats from Australia, from Great Britain, from Ireland, and we're having a few drinks, and the Aussie turns to me, "Oi, why is America so fucked up, mate?" And they're talking about the election with Romney and Obama, and like what the hell's wrong with us, and whatever else was going on in 2012, and God and all that shit.
And you're like, hold
And
your beer, bro. Just give us a few years.
and I tell you, I turned to him, so I was getting like beat up on right by like three expats, and I was like, you know what we've been doing for the last 70, for the last century, we've been fixing Great Britain's screw ups and the rest of Europe's fuck ups. You guys screwed up the whole goddamn world, and America has to come in and fix shit and try not to ruin more shit. And I just went off on them, but yeah, but their sole focus was because America is the world's reality.
100%. Well, I mean, that's because our culture. So it's easy to export violence, laughter, sex, drugs, right, and entertainment because that goes across borders. You don't need to translate that, right? So there's something to be said for the presence of our military across the world, right? There's something to be said for our economic presence across the world, right? And there's something to be said for our cultural presence across the world, right? Our media is everywhere. Our corporations are now everywhere, right? And this is where I get this is I think you'll find this interesting, right? This isn't it hasn't been nailed down, but it's been attributed to Mussolini in some sense. That fascism in one sense could be defined as the marriage of corporation and state. And that's when I'm like I look around, I'm like, what the fuck have we been since 1950 then if not some form of fascist fucking nation,
Right.
right? So it's like
True.
just like lawful fucking evil, right? Is what I would call it, I think. I'm always up to change that. But I don't know, man. The last few years have kind of shaken up a lot of my views. Even like I used to be like the most like devout free speech, like 1A, I don't give a shit, like what it is, they can say it. And I'm still a devout free speech dude, but I do think we have to reconceptualize the 1A particular free speech and free press in what the world today looks like because it's not addressing what the information climate looks like today. Because the threat to free speech is no longer the government, in my opinion. Not that the government's not a threat, but there's a bigger threat, and I think that is corporations and disinformation itself. So,
Oh, absolutely. 100%.
yeah, so we got to have that conversation on, because that's the thing. I stand by what Twitter did with Trump originally, because that's to me, that wasn't constitutionally protected speech, anyways, right? But that can be debated, right? So, with that being said, though, we can't ignore that that's given them a bit of a fucking green light. And there's not enough oversight, there's not enough transparency. We don't know how and why they make the decisions that they do. Yeah, there's a lot there we got to explore and dive out and figure out. And it's interesting. I've heard some people know a little bit more about this. They say that there's a little bit of a war in big tech, like for example, Facebook, Google. There's a fracturing, so it's interesting that the oligarchy itself and aspects of it seem to be a little split on where they want things to go. And anytime the big boys are arguing, it's good for us, the people. Because if we are an oligarchy, the way you can kind of this is really general. Like you can really flesh this out. This is really general. But if you were to split America into the elite and the people, right? In general, if we the people want something, the elite can block that about 8 to 9 out of 10 times, right? Almost 80 to 90% of the time, they're gonna block that shit. If they really want something, they're gonna get it about half the time. That's not a good ratio. That's only getting worse. So I think we're pretty much there.
I agree. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think we've hit that point. We're getting close to an hour. Anything you want to add a hit before? Because we're definitely gonna do this again. You're for sure. If you're down, I definitely want to have you back on.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, like anything I want to hit more is just going to make us talk a lot longer. There's a
Right.
couple topics that people wanted us to touch upon, like Israel, Palestine, UFOs, the
UFOs came
insurrection.
up last time. What the fuck's up with
Yeah,
UFOs right
I
now?
got that in my thing too. Like, oh, the hot topic is UFOs today. Like, what do you think? And I'm like, oh, you don't want to know anything.
So how about this? We'll do Israel Palestine for sure next time because I think there's a lot to kind of go into with the history of Hamas, our own kind of support for Israel and what that kind of looks like. Maybe we can kind of explain the UN and how that works for people to some degree. Um, because that's not just U.S. with Israel, right? We fuck up with that, I think. But there's other examples like China with their veto power, right? Or like even Russia with their veto power. So we should probably talk about that and why the UN just kind of sucks in general, in my opinion. Um, so yeah, we'll do Israel Hamas for sure. And then how about that? I'll pull a comment or something from here, and you pull a comment from there, and we'll pick those three.
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
Cool. And for now, I'm cool doing another Wednesday night as long as that kind of works for you. I know play by ear. I know your schedule might
Uh,
switch up.
yeah, if we can make that either Thursday or Tuesday.
Tuesdays I can do. Cool.
Okay.
Because
All right.
I'm planning on kind of doing like a Tuesday Wednesday night debate night, just making it a constant thing. So I'll just do Tuesdays. We'll slot you in. Cool.
Okay. Yeah. Well,
All right,
we'll
man.
definitely have a debate, if you will, about the Israel Palestine thing.
Yeah, I think we
You and I are just absolutely opposed.
yeah, we see difference on there. Yeah, that'll be a good conversation for sure. Because I don't think we're necessarily opposed on everything. I think we probably just see might see some of the cause and effect differently.
That's true.
So yeah, dude, I enjoyed this. I appreciate you being here. Everyone, this is good people. This is the type of person you really want to follow because he provides really good, healthy, constructive feedback. Right? We don't always see eye to eye, but it remains respectful. He knows his shit. He's got good experience. Someone wants okay, Carnage, my favorite person, she wants me to ask you real quick. What are your thoughts on Snowden?
If there's one man that deserves a bullet in his head, it would be Snowden. Um,
Ooh,
yeah.
ooh,
uh,
that's a hot take.
yeah, it sure is. That's been my belief ever since. I was at the. I mean, that was one of my duty stations was at the NSA, and I was there during this time period. Um, and for the life of me, I can't figure out. I'm very well versed in classified information, and for the life of me, I don't know why the federal government keeps back some of the shit he did. Um, there's things that nobody knows about that he did that I can't talk about that he just deserves a bullet in the head for it. If his sole focus was the 702 program, then I probably wouldn't say that, But
It was it just the complete
he did a
dump for
lot
you?
more than what people know, and
Was it the just complete dump, or was it the because I know so okay, so given that you can't go into aspects of this, it's a little going to be kind of unfair and one-sided if I push back. But from kind of my understanding, when he was going to drop information, it was from our understanding he hit appropriate outlets to say, "Yo, if there's certain things that shouldn't go out, let me know now." And then from his from what he said, he didn't get any no like pushback. No one came to him or anything. So like or no one gave like a response saying don't go out that. So then he dumped it or whatever. That's kind of my understanding, but it sounds like that's not the case from your understanding and perspective
yeah,
and
correct.
knowledge. Okay.
Yeah, he's full of shit when he says that. So I mean that's the plain and simple truth. Um, yeah,
This
he's a
is
bad dude.
one of those things where like people aren't gonna like this, but there's certain times in life where like you run into things where it's just it does come down to almost a he said she said. So for example, there's times in life where someone asks me, "How can I believe you versus this when it comes to Iran?" I'm like, you're gonna have to either think I'm credible or they're credible when it comes down to it. One of us has primary experience and one of us doesn't, or both of us do, right? We both are saying this, and you're gonna have to, you know. So that's one of those things. Yeah, I'll respect you on that. I know. I think that my thought process was pardon, you know, but I'll look as much into that as I can now and try and find more fucking information on that. So yeah, that's definitely a hot take. I think my people, yo. So here's what we'll do. If you guys have some more questions, if he can answer some of those, we'll try and figure it out for you, because obviously he can't answer everything. So with that being said, you wanna anything you wanna say before we get out of here, my man?
I actually really appreciate your audience. I'm not really on TikTok to advertise the way everybody else is, although sometimes I wish I was, because I feel like I do have some important things to say. But at the end of the day, I'm just out here trying to speak the truth about what I like, my experiences, what I know, and I really appreciate your audience for listening in. If they definitely have questions, please capture them. I would definitely do my best to answer. Um, and yeah, this is a good conversation. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, definitely. We'll do this again, and I'll probably actually do a video like where I stitch one of your videos. I'll just tag you, and like it'll be unrelated. Say, yo, hit us up with comments that you want to see us touch on next time, so we kind of have them in some place that's easily accessible. So appreciate your time, man, and I'll see you soon.
Absolutely. All right. Take care.
Later, man.
Later.
All right. Cool, cool. That was interesting. So now I gotta go fucking learn more about Snowden because that completely threw me for a 180. And yeah, we'll definitely touch on Patriot Act, NSA, all that jazz. This was a little bit of a feeler. So given given what happened with Jacked Beast, I'm trying to vet out a little better now. So yeah, because I don't want any like Proud Boys dumped on my lap anymore. Yeah, I'd like to hear his thoughts on Flynn too, because I think Flynn is a traitorous scumbag. Okay, so guys, yeah, while we're here, check in. Go ahead and subscribe on YouTube. Mute the Media, same exact name. This is where all these go. Thanks, Shy. You're an all-star. Go ahead and follow Cheyenne for UBI. She's a rock star. Hey guys, follow Kipper DD. His page doesn't have enough following. I don't get it because every time I come across his videos, he's got a really good take. Follow Change the System. Who am I missing in here? If you guys are in here, sound off so I can get you. Follow Joseph Taylor 1971. Sour Patch, I thought I made you a moderator. Did I not? Number of admins has reached max limit. That's horseshit. Whatever. Kipper, are you? Am I Kipper saying I'm muted? Can you guys hear me? I think you can hear me. Here, let's just do this. Oh, cool. She can. All right, cool. Some of you guys can't. Well, sucks to suck, Kipper. Um, hmm. Yeah, I don't know how I hit my limit. I don't feel like there's that many in here. Yeah, when we talk, well, shit, I'll just fucking end it and restart it. Whatever.